Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, this is our 2024 U.S. Open preview show. We're going to be talking everything and anything 2024 U.S. Open at Pinehurst No. 2. Now, I'm not going to bury the lead here. Quite frankly, I think the Scotty Scheffler is going to win this tournament by more than 3 strokes. There, I said it. That's my winner for the week. That's my pick this week. And what we're going to do here in the rest of this episode is we're going to dive into why I think that is going to happen. And we're going to dive into how that affects how you need to look at DFS this week, betting this week, office pools this week, one and done this week, literally any other format of game that you might be playing. We're going to take a look at how that might affect you this week. And now I think the impending dominance of the world's greatest golfer should affect how you approach all of those games here this week. Now, if you are here with us for the U.S. Open for the first time, I hope that you will hit that subscribe button on YouTube as well as to the audio feed. That way you can be back with us for the rest of the PGA Tour season, as well as all of our upcoming and already recorded NFL, college football, college basketball content. We're going to have some NFL best ball content coming your way throughout this summer. And we also have an episode where we recorded last night where we talk about college football best ball drafts. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check that out on the channel feed on audio as well as on the YouTube page. And please do me a solid. If I have helped you out to this point of the PGA Tour season, please hit the like button on YouTube. It really does help me out a ton. I really do appreciate it when you guys do that. And if you're listening on audio, you can do the same by rating and reviewing the podcast. It helps it show up in searches, helps people notice it, helps grow the community. And I really do appreciate it when you guys do that. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into Pinehurst No. 2, because this is a major championship that is taking place in my home state of North Carolina. I had never gotten out to Pinehurst No. 2, but I remember watching it the times it's hosted the U.S. Open while I was growing up as a kid. I know some people who are from the Pinehurst area, so I've got a little bit of knowledge of Pinehurst, a little bit of knowledge of how this is going to play, and I do think that that's going to give me a little bit of a leg up on everybody else. But anyway, let's go ahead and end the introduction there. Let's go ahead and start talking Pinehurst No. 2. All right, so if you are watching on YouTube, you are seeing a lovely flyover that the USGA put together of Pinehurst No. 2. Now, if you're a little more interested in golf course, which I personally love, both Golf Digest and the Fried Egg have a video that kind of dives deeper into the architecture of Pinehurst. But yeah, really, this is just an iconic American golf course. In my opinion, it's probably one of the top 5 most identifiable golf courses in America, and it does it without really having a super signature hole, like the 17th at Sawgrass or the 16th at Scottsdale or the 12th at Augusta. There's not really that one hole that stands out here at this course, but it's just a general vibe and just a beautiful aesthetic coupled with very difficult and challenging golf that just makes for a great U.S. Open. So anyway, we're talking about Pinehurst No. 2. Let's go ahead and dive into the specs. This is located in Pinehurst, North Carolina. This is known as the Sandhills region of North Carolina. It's kind of in between Charlotte and the beach. It's kind of an area that has a ton of golf courses. Obviously this is Pinehurst No. 2. There is the Pinehurst Resort that has up to number 10 now, I believe, as well as some other courses like Mid Pines and Southern Pines in this area, that they all have this same general aesthetic. This course was like one of the original ones that was designed by Donald Ross, around the turn of the 20th century. Notable, Donald Ross also designed courses on the PGA Tour like East Lake, Detroit Golf Club, Sedgefield Country Club, and Bleak Hill. The last time that Pinehurst hosted the U.S. Open was back in 2014. Martin Keimer won the last edition, and it was a runaway. I remember watching so much of the Thursday and Friday coverage of this tournament because I was on summer break in college, and I was working at a local grocery store at the time, and I remember requested off for those 2 mornings so that way I could watch the U.S. Open. But then Saturday and Sunday came around, and it wasn't even fun because Martin Keimer was just running away from everybody, and there really wasn't a whole lot of excitement to watch. And in that tournament, it played supremely difficult. Only 3 players in the entire field were par, and I expect the course this week to play very similar to how it did that week. The only change is that the greens here were bent grass in 2014, and they were switched over to Bermuda grass shortly after. I think the Bermuda kind of keeps a little bit over the winter better with the climate that you see in Pinehurst, so that's kind of why they made that change. But obviously, this event's being played in the summer. I don't think that's going to have a whole lot of change this week, but some guys do putt better on Bermuda than on Bent. Now, in terms of the scorecard, this is a par 70, 7,500 yards. All of the par threes at Pinehurst are 190 yards or longer, and there's only 2 par fives, and they're both going to be about 600 yards. There are multiple par fours that are over 500 yards. There's also some shorter par fours, and so you're going to really use the whole bag. Like you're going to see long approach shots, you're going to see short approach shots, and you're going to see a ton of creativity in the short game. Now, in terms of a driving golf course, this is not your Winged Foot U.S. Open course where the fairways are the width of a hallway, and when you miss it, everybody's in fifth round. Like, this is not that. These fairways here at Pinehurst are actually wider than average. They're about 33 yards wide on average, but they are super firm. So you're going to get a ton of rollout in the fairways as long as you're able to find it. And what is unique about Pinehurst for most U.S. Open courses is that there is no rough here at Pinehurst. It is all local, native area or natural area that has wiregrass. That's going to be kind of the key word this week. If you watched last year at LACC, the key word of the week was barranca, the kind of the ditch that runs through the course. The key word this week is going to be wiregrass. And really, if you miss the fairway and you're caught in this kind of sandy area or the wiregrass, you can end up missing the fairway and having a lie where it's sitting up quite nicely and you can get under the ball and still be able to hit towards the green. Or you can get supremely unlucky and have it sit down in the sand or down below the wiregrass and you just have no shot at delivering good contact with the club. So really, if you miss the fairway this week, there's going to be a little bit of luck involved. So what that means to me is that hitting the fairway is going to be at a premium. When you look back at 2014, Martin Keimer, who is not a long hitter, ranked above average in driving distance for the week. And like I said, he's not a long hitter, but he was able to find so many fairways. He got so much rollout that he was able to rank above average in driving distance. Now, what I think you're going to see this week is I think there's going to be a long shot, or maybe even more than just one long shot, who employs a strategy of just bombing it off the tee and hoping to get lucky in the wiregrass because they know that their best chance of winning is to bomb it out there and try to gain an advantage on the tee as opposed to trying to beat everybody else by getting long and mid-iron greens and just hoping that you get lucky with the lies. I genuinely think there's going to be somebody who tries that. I'm really interested to see who it's going to be or, how it actually ends up playing out. I could totally see somebody like Ryan Fox or actually not yet in playing this strategy. There are 2 elite drivers of the golf ball with a driver in their hand. So I'm going to be interested to see if somebody tries that. I do think somebody's going to take a crack at just swinging driver and hoping to get lucky with their lies. Now, the real treachery of this course is the greens. They are very crowned and very uneven. So what that means is pretty much if you picture the green like a tabletop, right? It's kind of curved at the edges of the table, so that way everything is going to run right? So the greens, they say that they're an average of 6,500 square feet, but they're going to play considerably smaller because of that ground. So basically, it might be 6,500 square feet, but the outer 2,500 square feet is going to roll off of. So you're really looking at only 4,000 square feet for the green, right? So they're going to play considerably smaller than they are listed at, and they're very firm and very fast. Now, when you miss these greens, there are short grass runoff areas next to every green. So you're not going to be chipping from them. You're going to be chipping from fairway grass if you miss the ball rolls off these greens. Now, what's interesting enough is that Martin Keimer, when he won in 2014, did not project as a good around the green player coming into Pinehurst, but he was very good that week because he was able to use the old Texas wedge, aka the putter, from off the green and roll it on up there nice and easy, stick it on close to hole and recover and make a lot of pars by 2-putting from off the green. That's going to be a legitimate strategy this week. And so I think that when you look at comp courses, there's going to be some value in looking and seeing how people did in the short game stats at courses where you can use the old Texas wedge. Now, speaking of comp courses, it's really tough this week with Pinehurst, really, really tough because I don't see there being one true comp with Pinehurst. This is a unique test. But looking at the leaderboard, go back and look at that 2014 leaderboard. You have Martin Keimer, you have Ricky Fowler, you have a lot of guys who have had success at QVC Sawgrass, which was a Pete Dye design. Pete Dye took a lot of his influence from Plus. TPC Sawgrass also features Bermuda greens. It'll also feature a ton of opportunities to putt from off the green, and also feature the entire bag. So I don't think that's a terrible comp. In terms of geography, Harbor Town is pretty close to this place, like not super duper far. It's very sandy soil. It's like you're going to see at Pinehurst. It's very, similar vibe to Bermuda Greens. Congaree is probably the best one, though. That they hosted the 2021 Palmetto Championship at Congaree and then the 2022 CJ Cup at Congaree, won by Derek Higo and Rory McIlroy, respectively. I think that might be the best individual comp to what you're going to see at Pinehurst in terms of wide fairways, natural areas off of the fairways, firm and fast conditions, short grass runoff areas. So I think that's a pretty natural comp. It's probably the closest. Yep. I also think that a lot of the skills that are used at Augusta National are going to play well. Augusta National does feature those short grass runoff areas. Augusta National is going to test you with the entire bag. It is also quite generous off the tee. So just a lot of similarities there with Augusta National. I think that St. Andrews has some similarities as well, just because it is a course where, the entire short game area is short grass. You can chip. Links golf, I think, is very good for what you're going to see. The closest U.S. Open, in my opinion, is what you saw at Shinnecock Hills back in 2015 when it was won by Brooks. Now, I say all that to say, we started off the show by saying that I think Scottie Scheffler is going to win by 3 or more shots. All of what I just said plays into, right? Pinehurst is a thinking man's golf course. And unfortunately, there's no real way to quantify that with the data. It's just by kind of watching it with the eye test and knowing the ball, right? And so, like with Scottie Scheffler, he's one of the best managers of the golf course I've ever seen. He does not put himself in bad positions off the tee, on approach, around the green, whatever. Like, he's just super smart, super calculated with where he misses because of the green runoffs here. There are places where if you miss to a certain side of the green, you're just going to have no chance to get up and down. And Scottie is smart enough that he's going to not put himself in a whole lot of those positions, right? And combine that with the fact that this is a golf course that is going to test not only driving distance, but accuracy. Scottie is probably the best total driver of the golf ball in the world when you look at distance plus accuracy. It's a super testy approach course because of how the green is set up. Scottie is the best approach player in the world. The green regulation percentage is going to be considerably low this week, and Scottie is the best short game player in the world. And it's Bermuda grass on the greens, which, oh, by the way, he's won at twice this year at Vegas. Scottie Scheffler loves the South and the Southeast part of the country. So to me, everything that we talked about here in this segment, talking about the course, plays right into the hands of Scottie Scheffler. Now, let's go ahead and close it out with this. In terms of the key stats, I think the key stats this week, number one is going to be strokes gained on approach. Basically, that's going to be the determining factor this week is, can you hit more greens than the competition? Because if you're hitting more greens, which is going to be very difficult in its own right, then you're giving yourself more birdie looks and you're not having to recover with super difficult recovery shots from off of these greens. And so if you have access to it, just looking at green and regulation percentage or green and regulation gained would be another good stat to look at. Like I said, kind of talking about Scottie, I think total driving is what to look at as opposed to distance or accuracy. You're going to be doing yourself a big favor by being in the fairway, but you're going to be doing yourself an even bigger favor by being long and being in the fairway. And I do think that strokes gained around the green and scrambling is going to play a huge part of what you're going to see lead to success here at Pinehurst this week, because guys are going to miss a lot of greens and it is going to be difficult to get up and down from these greens. So if you're not a good short game player, you're going to be putting yourself at a disadvantage. You're not going to be able to get up and down for par, whereas a lot of other guys are able to do so. All right, so that does it for our section about the course. So let's go ahead and take a quick breather, and then we're going to take a look at the rabbit hole. All right, so if you've been joining us all season long, you know that when I say look at the rabbit hole, I don't mean an actual rabbit hole. I'm talking about the rabbit hole, which is a tool created by BetSpertsGolf.com. That, in my opinion, it's the best golf database around. You can filter by all different kinds of conditions to kind of pick and choose what you want and try to really weed out what you need and what you don't need in order to build a custom model to try to see who might succeed at a course like Pinehurst. And to me, really for majors, this is when it comes into play the best, because you really don't get to see these courses year in and year out. And so you're able to kind of pick and choose different aspects of different courses, different games. And so you're just able to really filter and get whatever you need. And so we're going to take a look at some key stats this week. I went ahead and ran a custom model And really, what's interesting is Scotty Scheffler did not come out number one for me, but I know an exact reason why, and that reason why is putting. So I really, when I used my model this week to try to make sure that the live guys would not get excluded, I went and used a ton of like long-term stats. Like I'm talking like last 3 years, right? And that is because the live guys don't have really a whole lot of actionable data from the PGA Tour for the last 3 years, right? And so Scotty, his putting is not great when you look at the last 3 years. I decided to kind of compare 3 different stats. I looked at just putting in general, and then putting on just Bermuda grass, and then putting on fast Bermuda grass. And Scotty's still ranked 95th in the field on putting on fast Bermuda grass. So really just that one stat with putting is what brought Scotty down. But other than that, I still think he's the guy to beat this week. So really, in terms of what we're looking at for the stats this week, let's go ahead and go down the list. First off, I wanted to look at stats at Donald Ross courses. I wanted to look at stats at just major championships over the last 5 years. And in that category, the top 5 in the field is Scheffler, McIlroy, Schauffele, Zalatoris, Morikawa. Morikawa, deceptively good majors record, by the way. Then I wanted to look at Donald Ross courses. And in that regard, it is Schauffele, Hovland, Cam Davis, Russell Henley, and Rory McIlroy in the top 5. And then I wanted to look at just a very difficult golf courses. And this one was surprising to me because, there's generally the perception of Rory McIlroy needing, scores to be really low double digits under par in order to win. But he actually ranks first in this field in very difficult golf courses, followed by Will Zalatoris, Scotty Scheffler, Victor Hovland, and Matt Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick pops on a lot of these metrics. He's going to be one of my favorite guys this week, in my opinion. And then I wanted to make sure that guys had a good baseline of recent approach and around the green play. In terms of recent approach, Scheffler, Connors, Hoagie, Schauffele, and Thomas, and Aaron Rai are your top 5. Aaron Rai tying for 5th there. And then in terms of around the green play, Matsuyama, Scheffler, Noren, Thomas, and Cam Smith were your top 5 there. A stat that I also wanted to look at was apex height. So what apex height measures is basically how high of a ball do you hit, right? Like, are you hitting it high in the air? Which I think is going to be a supreme advantage this week because it's going to be allowing you to stop your ball on these greens where the landing zones are already tiny. And so if you're hitting a high ball, it's going to come to a stop quicker. And so I think that is going to be an advantage this week. Number 1 is Keegan Bradley, followed by Bryson DeChambeau, then on Ludwig Oberg and Thomas Dietrich as the top 5 there. Then I wanted to look at scrambling just from short grass. And in that regard, there's really a lot of guys who don't really pop up with a lot of data here. And unfortunately for this stat, we got guys who don't really have a whole lot of PGA Tour history near the top. Tom McKibben and Richard Mansell, 1 and 2, with Grant Forrest being 3. Schauffele, Scheffler, 4 and 5. Day, McCarthy, Hatton, Sig, Horschel rounding out the top 10 there. Those are really the rest of like the PGA Tour guys. Then I wanted to look at strokes gained around the green on comp courses, right? So these are your courses like St. Andrews, Augusta National, Harbor Town, Memorial Park, where putting from off the green is an option, but most of the time you are putting from the short grass or your ground the green play is coming from the short grass as opposed to thick rough or bunkers. So the top 10 in that category, I thought this was a really interesting one to look at. Kuchar, Jaeger, Scheffler, Horschel, Matsuyama, Mackenzie Hughes, Jason Day, Mark Hubbard, Harris English, and JT Poston. I then wanted to look at total driving for the last 36 rounds and see who was popping in terms of distance and accuracy there. And Santiago de la Fuente, who's an amateur, tied for first with Minwoo Lee, followed by Ludwig Oberg, Scotty Scheffler, and Tiger Woods as the top 5. So maybe needed to up the sample size on this one, but still, you get the picture. Guys who are had distance and accuracy are what we're looking for there. I then wanted to look at approach into small greens. And Scheffler, Rahm, Connors, Cam Smith, and Victor Hovland is your top 5 there. Now, one other interesting stat that I did include here in this model is approach putting, which means if you 2-putt on a green, how close does your first putt get to the hole, right? Like if you're going to be putting from off the green a lot this week, this could be a stat that's going to be pretty big. And the first 2 guys that popped up in the stat were not guys who play on the PGA Tour, Grant Forrest and Logan McAllister. The third was Tony Finau. And that did not surprise me because if Tony Finau is not a good putter of the golf ball. So when Tony Finau misses a 5-foot putt by 2 inches, his approach putt left him 2 inches. So not super shocking to see him pop up near the top of that list. After Finau, it is Grayson Sigg, Russell Henley, Taylor Moore, Jordan Spieth, Webb Simpson, Jason Day, and Siwoo Kim as the remaining top 10 in that stat. Now, I only factored in strokes gained putting on fast Bermuda greens in my model. And what I wanted to look at, though, was who increases their baseline, who is at their best when they're putting on fast Bermuda greens. So really the top 5 in this category is English: Hughes, Oberg, Burns, and Hatton. But in terms of guys who raise their baseline, Adam Svensson raises it a ton. Matt Fitzpatrick raises it a ton. Denny McCarthy, it lowers slightly, but he's a good putter on any grass. Max Grieserman, the baseline raises a ton. Keegan Bradley, the baseline raises a ton. Taylor Moore is another one where the baseline raises a ton, as well as Martin Keimer, Sergio Garcia. And then after that, we're really looking at a bunch of not so great putters. And I'm trying to see if there's anybody further down the list who has a notable dip or rise. Adam Hadwin and Brian Harmon lower their baseline on fast Bermuda, as well as Bryson DeChambeau, Peter Malnati. So that's kind of what you're looking at in terms of just fast Bermuda greens, right? Now, we did mention total driving is a stat. I also wanted to look at good drive percentage as a stat, but only good drive percentage on courses where the fairways have a high missed fairway penalty, meaning if you know you can't miss a fairway, are you able to put it in play, and are you able to hit the green with your second shot? So it's kind of like a driving and approach shot, right? Aaron Rai, Zach Blair, Sam Bennett, Daniel Berger, and Austin Eckroat is the top 5 in that category, with Oberg Svoboda, who is, I believe, a PGA club professional, Kyle Morikawa, Scotty Scheffler, and Akshay Bhatia rounding out the top 10. I also wanted to look at approach buckets, but I decided against that because I really think that it's going to be hard to predict what approach buckets guys are going to use this week, because there is so much run out in the fairways that you're going to be left with a drastically different approach shot based on whether or not you hit the fairway. So I kind of exited those out of my model. So I then wanted to look at comp courses. So first up is the yearly comp courses. So these are courses that are similar agronomically, I guess is the word I would use, to Pinehurst, or have some features similar to Pinehurst that are played yearly on the PGA Tour, because some of these guys aren't going to have some of the ones in my second category. So this is Harbour Town, Sawgrass, Quail Hollow, and Augusta National. 1 is Scotty Scheffler, followed by Xander Schauffele, Cam Smith, Corey Connors, Justin Thomas, Matt Fitzpatrick, Rory McIlroy, Hideki Matsuyama, John Rahm, and Tommy Fleetwood as the top 10. The other comp courses that I wanted to look at, these are the ones that are kind of like special PGA Tour events, like one-time only hosts. So this includes St. Andrews, Royal Portrush, another links golf course, Congaree, the Concession. I failed to mention earlier, that was a course in Florida that is Bermuda greens, very firm and fast. Colin Morikawa won that event. A lot of short grass chipping areas at that course as well. Shinnecock Hills, Erin Hills, Kiowa Island. That is this list that we're looking at. So we got a pretty decent sample size here. And the top 10 on these courses: Koepka, Fleetwood, Finau, Hovland, Fitzpatrick, Fowler, McIlroy, Hatton, Cameron Young, and Xander Schauffele, and Kyle Morikawa tying in that 10th position. Now, when you throw all that into a model, what you ended up with at the end of the day was a surprising leader, Xander Schauffele, followed by Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler, Ludwig Oberg, and Tyrrell Hatton as the top 5. Hatton is the #1 outperformer of his odds and his DraftKings salary in my model, so he is going to be a guy that I'm going to be looking at this week. Rest of the top 10 is Matsuyama, Hovland, Smith, Fleetwood, and Rahm. Morikawa, Finau, Lowry, Bradley, and Thomas round out the top 15, with Cantlay, Henley, Siwoo Kim, Brooks Koepka, and Matt Fitzpatrick rounding out the top 20. So Keegan Bradley and Russell Henley and Siwoo Kim were the 3 6K golfers that popped up in the top 20 model. So you figure those got to be guys that you're going to be able to get in DraftKings lineups this week. Koepka slightly underperformed in the model, but I don't know. I'm still kind of trying to give some grace to the live guys, because it's really hard for them to pop up in these models when you're looking at really long-term stats and when you're not really having recent form stats that you can go by for their game. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Brooks Koepka in just a second. But anyway, that is the first run of my model, the Monday edition. I'm going to be doing more versions of this as the week goes on, and you can see the full top 10 for this model on Wednesday, I write an article every week to my Patreon, patreon.com/MikesMoneyPicks, where I profile my core plays on DFS for DraftKings and FanDuel, as well as the top 10 from my final model. So if you're interested in seeing how that pans out, check that out on Patreon, patreon.com/MikesMoneyPicks. You also get a full write-up with reasoning for all of the picks and the model as well. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick breather, and then we're going to take a look and see how all this impacts the DFS and the betting boards. All right, so we are taking a look at the board on DraftKings now, taking a look at the salaries and seeing who we like in DFS. And I got to say, I think that this is going to be a big week for game theory when you're playing DraftKings. And the reason why is because of the elephant in the room, Scotty Scheffler. I think that in DFS, he's probably going to be about 50% owned. And so I am probably going to be more than that. I am probably going to be about 80% on Scotty Scheffler. It's what I was last week at the Memorial. I believe I ended on about 70% Scotty Scheffler, and I was pretty satisfied with the outcome. It was a profitable week on both DraftKings and FanDuel for me, because I was able to find a lot of the lower guys to eliminate from my player pool. And I didn't end up hitting the big payday, but I just had a lot of lineups that min cashed. And if you're, playing 20 max, 40 max, whatever, and you have a ton that min cash and go just above that, you can still have a profitable week, even if you don't end up with the big score. And I found it really hard this year to get a big score at a signature event. It just has not been my strength so far. So maybe back to full field here at the US Open, maybe we're able to get one. Anyway, that's beside the point. So I'm going to be playing Scotty Scheffler above the field average in DFS. And the reason why is because I just think he's going to win the golf tournament, right? I find a really difficult time seeing Rory McIlroy and Xander Schauffele beating Scotty Scheffler this week. Literally, Rory McIlroy has not beaten Scotty Scheffler in a golf tournament that they have both played in the 2024 year. And if you're saying, wait a minute, Mike, Rory McIlroy won at Quail Hollow. He did. Scotty Scheffler was not in that field. Rory McIlroy finished third at San Antonio. Scotty Scheffler was not in that field. Rory McIlroy won the team event. Scotty Scheffler was not in that field. So why would I put a lot of my lineups into the Rory basket when he hasn't shown the ability to beat Scotty Scheffler? It's a valid question, right? So really, here's the other thing that you need to understand if you're going to be playing DFS and if you're going to be playing Scotty Scheffler this week. If he is 50% owned and you have him in your lineup, it is not just instantly Scotty Scheffler wins golf tournament, I win money. It's not that simple, because you're also going to have to beat at least half of those Scotty Scheffler lineups in addition to some other non-Scotty lineups in order to win some money. So you're still going to have to find ways, especially if you're playing Scotty Scheffler, to make your lineup difficult and unique. And I got to say, this week, there's a lot of very comfortable clicks. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of guys in the 6K range, we're going to get to them, that are very obviously underpriced. And you can pick Scheffler, you can pick another guy in the 9 or 10K range, and you can put 2, 3, even 4 of these 6K guys in there and feel pretty good about your lineup. So really what you need to do this week, if you're going to be playing Scheffler, is you need to make yourself slightly uncomfortable. You need to try to find a guy who is not going to be very chalky, or 2 or 3 guys who are not going to be very chalky if you're going to play Scheffler, because you're going to have to beat a lot of those Scheffler lineups, and you're going to have to do it in a way that's different from what a lot of people are doing, right? So if you just put Scheffler in your lineup, you have $7,400 remaining with that salary. I can tell you this much this week. A lot of people, virtually nobody's probably going to be pairing Scheffler with another one of the top 6 golfers that are 10K or above. So that would be one way to get unique. And I don't think a lot of other people are going to be going all the way down to the 5K range this week. I see that as a very barren range this week. So that would be another way that you could get unique. Or you could just find guys in the 6, 7, 8K range that no one's playing, or combinations of them that no one's playing, in order to get a little bit of uniqueness this week. But I'm telling you right now, sitting here recording this on Monday night, if you go out and you're hand building your lineups and you feel very comfortable clicking all 6 of your guys with Scotty in the lineup, it's probably going to be very highly owned. It's probably going to be duplicated, and you've got to be willing to eat that chalk if that's something that happens when you build your lineups. Now, how does this impact betting? Well, this is a week where, and I stayed true to this last week, I did not make any outright bets that were not in each way, or make like a top 10 bet last week. Like I don't want to bet outright to Scottie Scheffler to win because the odds just aren't sustainable. And I don't want to bet somebody that's just going to lose to Scottie Scheffler. So if you want to make outrights this week, my advice is to do it with an each way market where you get the placement points, or do the betting without Scottie Scheffler market, or do what I've done for each of the last few weeks where you just build a top 10 or top 20 parlay. Start it with Scheffler, get another guy near the top you like, get another guy further on that you don't. Last week for me, I had a top 10 parlay of it was Scheffler, Straka, and Fitzpatrick. And to me, like, it was pretty darn good odds. So that's going to be a way that I'm going to look to be profitable again this week. I'm going to find guys that I like and just pick them to come top 10, top 20. And that's going to be how I approach betting until Scottie Scheffler gets off of this run he's on. I also think that it could be a very good opportunity to pick Scottie to win and parlay that with somebody else to go top 10, top 20. That would increase the odds significantly. And obviously it'd be pretty tough to hit, but it'd be a lot better odds than just trying to bet Scottie to win the golf tournament 3-1. So anyway, if you're not going to play Scottie, well, who might you play? Well, I think a lot of people are going to click Xander Schauffele this week. So I would pivot to, if I'm not making a Scottie lineup, I'd probably make a Rory lineup, because I don't think that that's what a lot of people are going to do, right? And so if I'm playing for leverage, I might as well go all in and play for leverage, right? And so Rory, the good news is with him is you look at his stat profile and he's got a lot of green on the board. Like, he really has been good in every single facet of his game for like the last 3 months. And that's really what we like to see with Rory, right? He also has a win at Congaree, which I think is the most geographical close golf course to what we're going to see here at Pinehurst. He also has a win at Kiowa Island, which is a pretty similar geographical course to this golf course. And you can also see he actually raises his baseline in very difficult golf courses. He actually raises his baseline in long and very long golf courses. So I really do think that this is a pretty good spot for Rory, all things considered. Again, I said it earlier, he hasn't shown the ability to consistently beat Scheffler, but if we're playing DFS and we're trying to leverage a way that we would win without Scottie Scheffler in our lineup, I think Rory McIlroy is the way that you would want to do that. So Bryson and Brooks are supremely interesting to me. So let's talk about Brooks first. Brooks has a win at Oak Hill. That is a Donald Ross golf course. He has a win at Shinnecock Hills. I think that is a very good comp to this one. It's the most difficult U.S. Open course of the last 10 years, and Pinehurst is probably second to that, right? So 2 very good comp wins for Koepka. He was also T9 at this tournament in 2014, kind of starting the whole Brooks Koepka showing up in majors things before he broke through and finally won one 3 years later. What I like about Brooks is he's an elite manager of the golf course, much like Scottie Scheffler. When Brooks wins his majors, he does it by finding a way to make some birdies on the first 2 rounds. And then over the weekend, it's just going to be fairway green, fairway green, fairway green, play to the conservative spot, even if it means you're going to have a 25-foot putt, and just try to drain that 25-foot putt. And he's drained a lot of them in his career. So I trust Brooks's golf course management skills more than anything this week when it comes to a guy that's not Scottie Scheffler. He also has not won a major championship where he did not play the immediate week before the major, right? And so he played last week at Live Houston, T9, which is okay, but he has 65 on Sunday. That's pretty good. So Brooks Koepka, I think, is heating up. I trust his major mentality type of game in order to succeed here at Pinehurst this week. If there were anybody in this field that I think is not Scottie Scheffler who's going to win this golf tournament, I would pick Brooks Koepka. The other guy that I just don't really know what to do with is Bryson. So Bryson, to me, is too smart not to figure out this golf course. Like, if you watch this guy's content on YouTube, he's legitimately like a very intelligent guy. Sometimes a little awkward, sometimes a little cringe, as the kids would say, but he's legitimately very intelligent. He can be funny too. I like Bryson just as a guy. I want to see Bryson win a major, and I don't know if this is going to be it, because part of me is like, well, if this place is going to be super short game dependent, Bryson's got those 1-length irons and wedges that they're kind of not great in that regard. It's going to be difficult for him. But part of me is also like, this guy's really smart. Like, I also think that if wailing away with driver is not the prevailing strategy this week, he's smart enough to not do it. If you remember the last Players Championship that he played in before he left for Live, He finished third in that event, and it was not swinging driver all week long. He swung a driving iron off the tee, put it in play, and was still about on par distance-wise with a lot of other guys in the field. And that was kind of, his advantage was, hey, I'm going to be in the fairway at this place as opposed to just trying to bomb it out there. And so I could see him doing a very similar thing this week. I just think that along with Koepka, I think his management of the golf course is what's going to propel him this week as opposed to any actual skill set that he has. And it's really difficult to kind of make that prediction when you are an analytical numbers guy like I am, but that's just what I see out of these two guys. And I think I'm very likely to play both of them in DraftKings. I think you can play either one of them with Scotty Scheffler. I think you can play them together. I think that it would be a way to be unique to play Scheffler and then one of those guys, or to play both of them together. Now, Victor Hovland is next up that we got to talk about. So Victor Hovland has owned Donald Ross golf courses in the last year. He was runner-up at Oak Hill, won the Tour Championship. His short game, which is normally his fatal flaw, has been improving, but it's also been at golf courses that are not like this one when it comes to the short game. So really, when you look at what Victor did at the 2022 Open Championship at St. Andrews, he was great at that event. He finished in fourth place. And he used the Texas wedge a lot. He putted from off the greens, and that may be a thing that he does this week and is able to use it quite well. What's also interesting is that since Brooks Koepka winning at Shinnecock in 2018, every winner of the U.S. Open has been a first-time major winner. And if there were anybody to do it this week, you look at all these names at the top of the board, they've all won majors. Victor Hovland has not. So I think he would be the most likely first-time major winner out of anybody that's left in the field. Colin Morikawa, to me, is going to be chalk. We talked about how this golf course is about precision. There's none more precise than Colin Morikawa. His short game is also improving greatly in the last year. And he also has the best recent form of anyone coming in not named Scotty Scheffler, fourth, and second in his last three starts. So Colin Morikawa is a super easy click, and I think people are going to click him with Scotty because you see on DraftKings, you click those two guys and you've got $6,900 average remaining salary left. That's very comfortable. You can get a lot of guys that you can feel good about getting in your lineup with Colin Morikawa as the second guy in. Let me tell you this also, above 9K, no one's going to play Rahm. No one's going to play Cantlay. No one's going to play Clark. And I got to say, I'm not either. Rahm, we talked about on the Live show last week, my general concerns with his game, and now he's withdrawing after Live Houston after one round. Just a whole lot of bad vibes there. I'm not playing Rahm. All the leverage bros are going to be like, hey, you got to play good John Rahm. He's going to be 3%. Okay, you can have your 3% John Rahm. I'll take the guys around him, and I'll try to beat you another way. Cantlay and Clark are coming in with just terrible recent form. And I'm just not a believer in those two guys either. They're going to be very lowly owned. If you want to take a chance on them, go for it. I think I'm going to pass up the opportunity for the leverage on those two guys and seek to gain leverage elsewhere in my lineups. Cam Smith is a guy that I also anticipate to be pretty popular, and I like Cam Smith quite a bit. Liv Houston was a bit of a red flag for him. He finished 48th. He was tied to Anthony Kim. It's not great when you're tied with a guy who didn't play professional golf for a decade. But when you look at his game, he's the short game wizard, right? Winner at St. Andrews, winner at TBC Sawgrass, great history at Augusta National. If short game matters this week, he's the guy who's going to prevail. And so if you're going to play Scotty Scheffler, who's an elite short game player, it makes a lot of sense to play Cam Smith, also an elite short game player. And much like clicking Morikawa as the second guy in, you have a very comfortable remaining salary after you click Cam Smith as the second guy in. Tommy Fleetwood, I also expect to be pretty popular. We listed off all those comp courses earlier. He's finished pretty much top 5 at all of them, and he just never has put it together for a win. That's just been the story of his career. That's kind of what I see being the case this week. Again, I see him as a lock to finish T12 personally. And so if you're willing to take that T12 into your lineup, knock yourself out. The next 4 guys I like quite a bit. Love Zalatoris, love Fitzpatrick, love Finau, love Matsuyama. Matsuyama is going to be the most popular because of his price tag and because when you look at custom modeling, he's going to rate out really well because of his short game and because of his track record at long and difficult golf courses. Zalatoris, Fitzpatrick, and Finau also are great at long and difficult golf courses. So Zalatoris and Fitzpatrick, the reason why they were so great at the Country Club 2 years ago, because if you remember correctly, they were the final pairing, is they're so calculated, so precise in their game that they know when to miss and where to miss and how to miss. And the Country Club was, of course, they could really jump up and get you if you did not miss in the right spots. It's a much different golf course, but Pinehurst is very in that same regard, right? Like Pinehurst, if you miss to the wrong spot, is going to kill you. So these two guys, I feel pretty good about in playing these two. Fitzpatrick has a deceptively good U.S. Open history, and the T5 at the Memorial coming in is a really good sign. His game's firing on all cylinders. Love me some Matt Fitzpatrick. Will Zalatoris is not as good recent form. He's going to be much more lower owned. So I will be mixing and matching these three guys as we go forward. Tony Finau. I don't think a whole lot of people are going to click at all. Good form coming in with the T8 at Memorial. His approach play in the calendar year 2024 has been outstanding. Ties at both Kiawah Island and Shinnecock Hills, which were two of my comp courses. So love me some Tony Finau this week. All right, so that does it for above 8K. Let's go ahead and take a quick breather, and then we're going to take a look at. So looking at this next little range on DraftKings, like the 8K and below, the upper sevens. I see a lot of guys that are just going to go unowned, right? Like Jordan Spieth, you never really know what you're going to get. I think he's a great GPP play because I think he's going to be lowly owned. And if he does come in and actually play well, he has the upside to win a U.S. Open because he's done it before, right? He's got a great short game. He can really get hot with the putter. He's a guy that I think is a solid GPP play when you know he's going to come in at low ownership. Hadn't I do see being the guy in here that's going to get a lot of ownership. Wasn't great at Live Houston. Wasn't great at the PGA either, but he's a great iron player. He's excellent on Bermuda grass. He's really good on difficult golf courses as well. So Hatton checks a lot of boxes that I think make him a pretty comfortable click as well. But as I just said, I don't think anybody's going to click Lowry, Theegala, Young, or Johnson. So if you want to play any of those guys, knock yourself out. I think Lowry would be the one that I'd be most likely to go to. Cameron Young has a great major championship track record, but his game just looks legitimately broken right now. It just is really hard to click him for that reason. Looking further down in the 7K range, though, Minwoo Lee's an interesting one. Absolute great driver of the golf ball. Driving ends up mattering this week. Then he's a guy that you're going to want in your lineups. And he's also got a deceptively good major championship track record. He was top 10 at LACC last year, T22 at the Masters, T26 at the PGA this year. So I could see Minwoo Lee being a guy that plays well here. The only thing that I worry about with Minwoo Lee is he's just not a good iron player. And I think that's really the component of the game that's going to matter the most this week, because if you're good with your irons, you're not going to need to do a whole lot with your short game. So that's my one little bit of concern about Minwoo Lee. Tom Kim is like the opposite. He is like Colin Morikawa light version. So I really do like me some Tom Kim this week. I think that his ability to keep the ball in play, keep it in the fairway, and then be precise with his irons is going to help him out a ton. He has a win at Sedgefield, which is a Donald Ross design that's only about a 90-minute drive from Pinehurst. So, that's a pretty solid comp course, in my opinion. Corey Connors is a guy that's going to be pretty popular in this range, and it's because of how he has been hitting his irons. He is a top 5 player in this field on approach in the last 36 rounds. So, if you think the iron play matters, you think that keeping the ball in play off the tee matters, well, then Corey Connors is your guy. Even though he doesn't have a great major championship track record, he's got a great record at Augusta National. So I do think Corey Connors certainly checks some boxes. If you're looking to play a guy on vibes, which I do every now and then, Robert McIntyre is my vibes guy this week, just because RBC Canadian Open, he rode a super hot putter in order to win that event. And really, he's been good at major championships in his career. He was T8 at Valhalla. He has some good runs at Augusta in his career. He's been a great Open Championship player in his career. I just think that this is a guy that just ups his game in major championships, and he's finally got a win on the PGA Tour now, and maybe that might be something that finally frees him. And I think with a lot of people either clicking Corey Connors at the same price tag or dropping down into the 6K range, I don't think he's going to be very popular. Now, we got to talk about the 6K range itself. And I do that as I'm saying I'm probably going to be full fading Sam Burns, Ben On, Sung J.M., and Ricky Fowler this week. They're probably all full fades for me. So heading into the 6K range, Alex Noren has been a top 20 machine in 2024, and he does it with the same formula every week. It's fairways, greens, hope to make the putt. Fairway, green, hope to make the putt. He's a very conservative player. He's an above average iron player. He's going to be pretty popular at 6,900, but I think the more popular $6,900 play is Russell Henley. Data Golf loves Russell Henley, and it's because of his approach play. He's been great on approach in 2024. He's been running a little cold with the putter. He's normally an above average putter. but he is from this area of the country. He went to college at Georgia, which is not too far from here. He's been great at Sedgefield in his career. He has been good at Wells Fargo, Quail Hollow in his career. Russell Henley is a guy that checks a lot of boxes, and I think he's going to be supremely popular at $6,900. And, we talk about Noren and Henley also sitting at $6,900 is only the reigning Open champion or the champion golfer of the year, Brian Harman. And so if you think that this is going to play a little lengthy, you think that short game and approach play matters, Brian Harman could absolutely show up and play very well at this event. I'm not going to be doubting Brian Harman here at $6,900. $6,800 also has some guys that I like as well. Keegan Bradley showed up really well on the model, and he's a great total driver. The golf ball was great here, T4 back in 2014. So he's checking some boxes for us. Was also great at Oak Hill, which was a Donald Ross design. Dean Burmeister has turned into one of the best ball strikers on LIV. Great total driver of the golf ball, great long iron player. Check some boxes. Definitely going to be playing some Dean Burmeister this week. And then Siwoo Kim, who has a traditionally terrible major championship record, but if you look at our list of comp courses, he's been great at them. He's been great at Sedgefield. He's won at Sedgefield. He's won at TPC Sawgrass, which was another comp course. He's been great at Harbortown. Just checks off a lot of boxes with the comp courses, and he's a guy that I think I'm going to consider this week, even though that major championship track record is concerning, but his recent iron play has also been pretty solid as well. So definitely on some Siwoo Kim this week at $6,800. Austin Eckroat is a guy that I've played a ton in DFS this year, and I don't feel the need to hop off the train now. Really, at Memorial, he just had a poor round one, which kind of took him out of it. The 76 on Sunday was actually about field average, so I'm not going to really criticize him too much for that. But just a guy that in his young career, he's shown up in major championships, was top 10 at the U.S. Open at LACC last year, was 18th at the PGA this year. I think that with all those popular plays at $6,900 and $6,800, I could see Eckroat being super unowned at $6,700. Harris English, also a guy that has deceptively good U.S. Open history. He has missed the cut in his last two starts, which is a little concerning. But if you're looking to buy into, hey, this guy knows how to play USGA setups well, $6,700 is not a whole lot to pay to find out. Now, the mid to low 6K range also has some guys I like as well. Billy Horschel checks a lot of boxes. He's a great putter on Bermuda. His approach play recently has been pretty doggone good. And he has won in the state of Florida in his career on Bermuda grass. So, if you're looking for a little bit of link, he's been good on Bermuda. That's kind of the one link you can draw with Billy Horschel. I don't mind it at $6,600. Akshay Bhatia and Sepp Straka, I think, are two young guys where their game just kind of fits major championship golf. Akshay is a great total driver of the golf ball who can get supremely hot with his irons. Sepp Straka is a guy last week at Memorial that was T5 back-to-back top fives. Actually, 4 out of his last 5 starts have been top 10 finishes for Sepp Straka. And he's done it by being supremely accurate off the tee, by being really good with his irons, and being decent with his putter. So really do like Sepp Straka there at $6,500. I think he's probably the popular click at $6,500. And there's 2 that are going to go under the radar that I like a lot. Ryan Fox, just a bomber off the tee. If there's anybody this week who's going to try to just pull driver and hope for the best on every hole, I think it might be him. And I think he has the upside that if it works, he could win the golf tournament. He's shown up in major championships before. I have no problem with Ryan Fox at $6,500. I also really like me some Kurt Kitayama at $6,500. He missed the cut last week at the Memorial, which is not a good sign, but he was runner-up to Rory McIlroy at Congaree in that 2022 CJ Cup. He also has won at Bay Hill, the Arnold Palmer Invitational. That's a long, difficult, firm, fast Bermuda grass golf course. He's been great at the Scottish Open in his career as well, so he can play a link setup where you're chipping off of short grass lies. So Kurt Kitayama checks a lot of boxes for me. He's a guy that I'm probably going to be significantly above the field on. But really, y'all probably get the gist of it from here that there's a lot of plays in the 6K range that are very playable and very underpriced, and they make clicking Scotty Scheffler this week very easy, which is only going to increase Scheffler's ownership as well. I also really like me some Aaron Rai this week. Just a guy who really keeps it in play off the tee. Not a great putter, but good short game in general. Good around the green player. $6,400 is not a lot to pay for Aaron Rai, in my opinion. Now, after Aaron Rai, though, I think this field really dries up pretty quickly, if I'm being honest. Mackenzie Hughes is a guy who's popped at a few U.S. Opens before. He's got a great short game. I don't see anybody rushing to play Mackenzie Hughes either. So he's a guy that you could probably get at supremely low ownership at $6,200. The guy that will get a lot of ownership at $6,200 is Christian Bezaid. Data Golf loves him. He like Russell Henley. He's like a top 15 Data Golf player. Fourth at the Memorial last week. Great on approach in 2024. Great around the green player in 2024, and an incredible Bermuda putter. He's probably going to be like America's value play this week at $6,200. I think he's probably as low as a lot of people are willing to go when they make their lineups. And I think that if you're looking for like a top 20 bet, I think he's probably like the longest guy I would go. I think he's got a pretty good chance at doing it. Just this course sets up really well for Bezaid, in my opinion. And, you look at like what he's done recently, and it's been missed cut or like really good finish. And so I kind of have faith that he's a pretty solid top 20 bet, in my opinion. All right. After there, looking at the 5K range, like I said, y'all, it gets pretty bleak. If you think the putting matters, so I should have said this guy in the 6K range. He's $6,000 even. It's Brendan Todd. If you think the putting matters, why not go get a guy who's a historically really good putter and historically a fairway finder, not supremely long off the tee, but going to put himself in position where he can hit greens. Brendan Todd, the recent finishes have not been great, but if you think the putting matters, play yourself a good putter with Brendan Todd. I think that David Puig is a little bit interesting. He's been really good on the Asian Tour and on Live this season. He actually has 2 wins on the Asian Tour, which do not show up in his DraftKings game log. He's a great total driver of the golf ball. I don't really know much about his game aside from that. But $5,900, I think he's got a little bit of upside. Adam Svensson is also like a world-class iron player, has been really poor in his career major championships, but he does significantly up his putting on Bermuda greens. So he might be worth a look at $5,900 if you're willing to ignore the poor major championship track record. In terms of recent form, Mac Meisner has been pretty good on the PGA Tour in his recent form, but Harry Higgs has been really good on the Korn Ferry Tour in his recent form. He's won 2 of his last 3 starts on the Korn Ferry Tour, and he also won in qualifying in Durham at Duke University Golf Course, which is probably like the closest geographical location for all the qualifyings that happened across the United States to what you're going to see at Pinehurst. That is not a like sandy sandhills course, but it's very much a Parkland, North Carolina course, but I do believe it is Bermuda grass greens. So Harry Higgs, 2 wins in his last 3 starts on the Korn Ferry, who's going to find fairways and greens. I don't mind it at $5,800. I think he's very likely to make the cut, but very unlikely to actually contend at the tournament. Grayson Sigg is not a bad option in my opinion. He's missed the cut in 3 of his last 4 starts, but he's a good iron player. He's good on Bermuda grass. Checks just a few boxes at $5,800. Chesson Hadley is another one that's a little bit intriguing. He is a North Carolina native. The recent form's a little bit up and down, but he's a pretty good putter of the golf ball. He's not super long off the tee, but he was also runner-up to Garrick Higo in that 2021 Palmetto Championship. So if you're looking for a little bit of comp course success, Chesson Hadley would be a guy that has it. Also, you have the last champion at Pinehurst, Martin Keimer, at $5,700, who's coming off of a T9 at Live, and he made the cut at the PGA Championship. So, like, if you're looking for just a guy to make the cut at $5,700, why not go with the guy who has a win here and is probably playing the best he has in the last 4 or 5 years? I don't think he's a terrible option, $5,700. I also like Sam Bennett at $5,700. The Korn Ferry Tour this year has been kind of up and down for him. He's had some peaks and valleys, but he was a factor at the Masters last year. He was a factor at the U.S. Open at LACC last year. Maybe the guy is just, the next generation of Brooks Koepka, Will Zalatoris, the guy that just shows up at major championships. So, and $5,700 is not a whole lot to pay to find out. So I'm definitely willing to go there. Frankie Sappin, I think, is a really talented Korn Ferry Tour player. He's kind of second to Harry Higgs in terms of the recent Korn Ferry Tour form. I think he's going to be the guy in about 5 to 10 years, but not yet. But $5,400, I definitely think he can make the cut in this event. Max Grieserman, up and down recent form, but he has shown the ability to play well on Bermuda grass on the PGA Tour this season. All right, I think that about does it for everybody that I want to talk about. So let's go ahead and end the show right there, y'all. That was our 2024 U.S. Open preview from Pinehurst number 2, or for Pinehurst number 2, I should say. So if you like what you saw here in this video on YouTube, please hit the like button. It really does help me out a ton. I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate when you guys do that. And also go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That way you can be with us for the rest of the PGA Tour season, but also the rest of our college football, college basketball, NFL, best ball content that's going to be coming your way for the rest of the summer. I promise you're going to want to be here for all of that. All right, so hopefully this show explained everything you need to know if you want to win your DFS lineups, betting cards, office pools this week. You guys got my full thoughts on the event. I think the Scotty Scheffler is going to win, but I think that there's a host of other guys that I really like this week. I'm certainly willing to make top 10, top 20 bets for them, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how it plays out at Pinehurst number 2 this week. This is my only piece of content for the U.S. Open this week. I know we've been doing multi-episodes for the Masters and the PGA so far this year, but I'm actually going on vacation tomorrow morning. My school just ended today, so traveling first thing in the morning. I'm going to be at a place where I don't know how the Wi-Fi is, so I'm not going to trust myself to have to make a stream or make an upload. So this is going to be the only piece of content you get for the U.S. Open, but I think we covered everything here, guys. So that's pretty much it. And hopefully you guys enjoy this. Hopefully you guys got some information here on this show that you can take away and use to pick some winners for the U.S. Open 2024. Enjoy the golf tournament this week. Enjoy seeing the best that North Carolina golf has to offer on the greatest stage in all golf. Good luck to you in all your endeavors, whether it's betting, DFS, one and done, whatever. Best of luck to you. Hopefully I was able to help a little bit. But thank you guys for watching and listening to this point, and I will see you guys next time.